students, and this is everybody's favorite type of lecture, tips and tricks. So let's learn some tips and tricks. You're going to practice forming the sentence mentally first. I'll talk more about all these, but these are really what I want you to be able to do by the end of this lecture. You're going to be able to recognize and use the 7 common grammatical structures, identify the subject and main verb quickly, and focus on the given statement to understand what information must be included. This will all make more sense after this lecture. But remember, build a sentence questions are designed to measure whether you understand grammar structure, not vocabulary. So that's what you should be thinking about when you're practicing, when you're thinking about how to improve. You want to think about, how can I recognize the right grammar structure faster? And so that's what you want to do. And this is important because you're either correct or incorrect. You have to get all 7 blanks or 8 blanks or however many there are. You have to get it all right to be correct. If you miss one, it's 0. So very important. You want to make sure you do this all correctly. So first tip is pretty simple. You read the given statement carefully and answer naturally. What does that mean? Was your flight delayed yesterday? I'm going to okay, so I read the given statement. That's the first thing. Was your flight delayed yesterday? That's the given statement. Before I look at this, I think, okay, how would I answer in real life? Yeah, it was delayed a little bit, but it wasn't a big deal. Okay, I don't see anything like that here. I don't see yes or no, so I'm not going to start that way. But that's just what I do. I just think about it. How would I answer? I say, yeah, sure. So I get in the right mindset of answering the question that's given. So you want to make sure, sometimes the reason I say this sounds very simple, but sometimes students go right to these blanks and try to figure out where everything goes without paying really close attention to the question that's being asked. The question is, why did you choose to move to a smaller town? I decided to move to a smaller town because, okay, so here's I, so that's what I would begin with, right? And then I look at these words that are given and try to put them in the right place. So pay close attention to what's given first and try to answer naturally. And this is connected to the second tip, which is to practice answering the questions mentally first. So how did you handle the customer complaint? I told the customer that we would respond by the end of the day. Okay, so I'm just making this up, right? Without looking at any of the words. I purposely put all the words. This will never look like this on test day. This is just for an exercise to help you practice. What can you say to put them in the right blanks, right? How did you handle the customer complaint? I responded and told them that I would email them by the end of the day. So that's not going to work. That's too many words. But you can practice this, right? And you can get used to trying to fit, creating sentences that fit the number of blanks. Of course, on test day, you'll have this here, and you can put it, I promise to send him a replacement by the end of the day. And so by comparing what you say and what the real answer is, you can start seeing patterns of how the questions are usually formatted. And I kind of did this before. Was your flight delayed yesterday? No, it wasn't delayed. No, maybe it wasn't is 2 words that are connected. It wasn't delayed. But since there's a comma here, I think there's something like but. But I arrived late anyway, maybe. But the boarding process took a long time, okay? So, yeah, it wasn't delayed, or I wasn't delayed, it wasn't delayed, but the boarding process took time. So practicing mentally will help you figure out the structure a bit more of how to format them, and then you can compare them to the real answers. So that's a good way to just kind of practice and get used to the structure, because again, you want to get good at recognizing the structure. That's really the goal. And you want to learn the 7 common structures. So you actually know this already because we talked about it in the last lecture about these different structures, embedded questions, infinitives, and so on. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail now because I just went into a lot of detail. But for example, here, I promised to send. What's this? Do you remember? To send, what's that? The infinitive, right? Infinitive included. So almost all of these follow one of these structures, a follow-up question, an adverbial clause, and so on. But how can you recognize them? So one way to help you recognize them is to look for some word clues. So adverbial clauses like when, before, after, because, while, even though. A lot of times these are adverbial clauses. Relative clauses, who, that, which, where. Remember, these describe a noun. He's my friend who I went to college with. This is my car, which needs to be repaired. Okay. And then conditional is if. I think most people know about conditionals, right? So you see these words here in the options. You think, okay, there's who here. Probably this is going to go in the middle somewhere, and it's probably a relative clause. So it's probably going to go before some noun. So these are things that I can use to help me figure out what belongs where. Like this is the relative clause. There's who or that or which or where or when. Right? And that's what the example I just talked about here. And then after, what word is that? After is adverbial clause, right? So make sure you keep that in mind to help you figure out the structure, help you answer the questions better. The last tip is to identify the subject and the main verb. So this is almost, and I mentioned this before, the subject of the verb, it almost always starts subject-verb. Not always, but a lot of the times. He explained, did he tell? I didn't enjoy, it wasn't delayed, we chose. You know, this is like the first day of grammar class. You learn English, subject, verb, object. So the subject and verb will usually come first, right? Responses often begin with a subject and a verb. You are now Toefl detectives, and you're getting clues and finding answers faster. I wanted to find a quieter place to live. It will start after everyone completes the registration process. Sometimes they'll give you the beginning of the sentence, I would have gone, and then you have to figure out the rest of it. But those are the tips for build a sentence. I hope you feel like you have enough clues, so you're not just going blind. You know, you're not just like, I got to figure out what goes where. You're like, okay, there's certain types of sentences that come up. I got to look for these words. I'm probably going to begin with the subject and verb. If it's a question, the order will be a little bit different. I'll look at the punctuation at the end, the question marks and the periods. So, you know, these are the ways to help you improve and to get to the answer faster. So a good practice is to form the sentence mentally first to answer naturally and then see what the correct answer is. Remember the 7 common grammatical structures. Subject and verb, you want to find those fast, probably the beginning of the sentence. And remember to focus on the statement so you know how to answer. That's it. Those are the tips and tricks for Build a Sentence. I hope you found them helpful and you can apply some of this information to answering the questions well. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.